So you want to know about the downsides of working remotely. I'm Nathan Riley. This is my channel, Ask Nato, where you can ask me cybersecurity questions, and I'll tell you the downsides of working remotely, because there's plenty. I always get questions about remote work, and they are good questions, so let's talk about remote work a little more. So, whenever I'm doing work remotely, the downsides can sometimes outweigh the positive sides. There are days when you're tired and your back hurts because you don't have a good chair, and you've been kind of like haven't been able to find a good desk to sit at, and you've been trying to work in some location that you're unfamiliar with, and you have a lot of work, and you just get cranky, tired, and kind of worn down sometimes when you don't have like a prepared routine location to go to. Don't underestimate the value of routine when you're trying to do work. Just because if you work at home or you work in an office, which I guess working from home is kind of remote anyways, so we could consider working from home to be working remotely, but in my case, I consider working remote, especially not working from home when I'm just out and about, because I'm out and about a lot and I run around a lot, and sometimes I work from a lot of places, and it can be very uncomfortable when you don't have all of the things you need in one place, and then half the time, like, you've got a bad back, you got a crick in your neck, and then on top of that, it takes you like 1 to 2 extra hours to try to, prepare and kind of get everything set up and put everything away, maybe even 3 hours depending on certain things, and you're missing stuff. So like if you forget something in your backpack or your bag, then that's just something that you're going to have to figure out how to do with that, and hopefully it wasn't important, and if it was important, maybe you need to go spend more money on something that you're going to buy as a business expense because you left it at home and you got a big project and you're in another state. I'm telling you. So probably the number one gripe that I have with remote work is, that you can't have a routine, not as easily, because everything has to change constantly, and constant change doesn't necessarily coincide with productivity. So for productivity, it's a little better when you can wake up, go straight to a place of work where you have everything you need in the same place always, everything's set up the same way always, and you can just sit down and never take for granted the fact that you can just get to work. And then you can stop working, leave everything there. You don't have to try to pack it up, or you don't have to be like, oh, I need to make sure I have an extra 30 minutes to make sure that I get everything kind of shut down and put away. And, you just leave. And usually your stuff is hopefully locked away in an office or something. So you just make sure everything's locked down and just leave. You're good. Leave your office, leave work. And then you don't have to think about work anymore. But when you do remote work, that's one of the big ones. It's probably my number one annoyance. Is the setup time and the takedown time, and sometimes things are missing, and it's really, really hard to be extra productive when you have to have extra things that are kind of also tiring when you work a lot. Another problem with remote work is it gets easy to get carried away, or where you'd be like, well, I really wanted to get this thing done. Well, if you're in an office, and it's especially an office where people all go home, you see everyone else going home. There are the people who just are like, I never leave work, and I stay at work all the time because I'm a workaholic and I just love being at work. Yes, they exist. Some of you might be those people. I am not one of those people. But when I'm working remotely, you can get carried away with a project, and when you get carried away with a project, the next thing you know, you're just sitting there working away on whatever it is that you were supposed to be done working on at 5. Now it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Now it's dark outside, and like the restaurant the coffee shop is starting to close, and they're like, you got to go somewhere else. And you're like, all right. And then you just feel like you wasted your day, and then you still have to pack all your stuff up and figure out where you're going to go, especially if you're in a strange place and you're not just going home or something along those lines. There is a charm to it to me to just like go, and I do gravitate to chaos a little bit. It's probably why I started a company, because starting a company is not structured and you have to figure everything out, and it's chaos and you don't know what's going on half the time, and then you have to figure it out, and then you learn a bunch of things, and then it's every time you learn something you feel like, anyway, so I kind of like chaos a little bit. So if you're a person who's fine with chaos, those things aren't such a big deal. But the other thing is unexpected weather is the worst. If it's unexpectedly just pouring, that's frustrating. If it's unexpectedly just incredibly hot, that's no good. If you get snowed in somewhere that you didn't want to get snowed in, that can be really maddening. And if you're just like stuck at the airport, I've been stuck at the airport so many times. And if you're traveling a lot and you're going to airports a lot, like if you get sick while doing remote work, that's awful. Like having the flu when you're like stranded at an airport and they have like little like hard airport seats, and then it's like you end up being stranded there overnight. At one point I got stranded in another country, and I'm like, I don't even know where I am right now. I'm like calling my agent. I'm like, just get me out of this country. Like just get me out of this country. I don't care. Like I don't know what's going on right now. Some people are trying to fight each other. Just, like, get me a plane out of this country. Get me out. So like sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes it's just too much chaos and it's just too stressful, and you just kind of want to go home and chill and be like, all right, I'm going to take a day to just not do anything. And then it turns into 3 days of not doing anything because you're just so tired that you sleep a whole day after traveling a lot. So that brings me to another really big one for me is remote work is more exhausting than you might realize. It's really exhausting at times, especially if you are an overachiever type personality where you're sitting there trying to get all of your projects done. Now, there are some people who are like, I don't know, I'll just do a little bit of work, and what I don't get done at the end of the day, great, I'm just going to not do it, and that's that. But for people who like to push the envelope and get as much done as possible and push themselves and challenge themselves, remote work can very easily turn into just feeling forever trapped with work and never feeling like you can escape. And it can also turn into where at home, if you work at home and you don't have a place to separate your work from your play stuff and your bedroom and stuff, like being in your bedroom can start to feel like you're at work. And so you can just start to feel like, and then it makes it hard to sleep. And then you just start losing sleep. And this happens to other people too. This isn't just me. So when I worked with like other remote teams and stuff, like just a lot of people, if they worked at home a lot, they're like, sometimes I like to travel because I can sleep a little better, because at home I just associate home with work now. And if I'm at home, like I feel like I should be working, and it just makes me not want to go home. It makes me not want to be home. And then they end up doing things like going to different coffee shops eventually so they can start to build some separation. So if you work from home, that can be something that happens for some people. I've met people who love working from home and that never seems to happen to them. But that's something that certainly happens to me. I personally need separation from my work. Otherwise, I can't relax. I can't have fun. I can't feel like I'm not working. And so I have to have like an office where I can close the door, or I just have to like leave. I don't work in my bedroom. I just don't. I don't work in my bed. I want my bed to be a place of sleeping where I can sleep and not work. Like I can work all I want anyways. If I want to work late, then I'll just get out of bed and go to my office and work, or go find a 24-hour place to hang out at. But sometimes remote work is, and the other thing that happens when you work remotely a lot, you just kind of have to understand that things are going to break, things are going to get smashed, things are going to get lost. You're just going to lose things. I don't lose things often, but especially when I worked with a lot of remote teams, and even now, like the people who work with Notia Point all work remotely. We don't all work in a Notia Point office. We don't do that. But things get lost for everyone, and things break, or accidents happen where someone tripped and they dropped their bag and something shattered and their iPad needs to be replaced now. Or, you end up, your clothes get ruined from something and you're wearing a nice business suit to some event. And that can happen to people anyways. But when you're traveling a lot, you just always have your gear with you and you always have your expensive things with you. And if it's the company, if it's stuff that belongs to a company, it doesn't feel as personal and like a big deal if something is lost or breaks. And if something personal is lost or breaks while on a business trip, some companies will reimburse you for the loss. Companies I did that, but I've met people who said that their companies don't reimburse them for things that are damaged or lost on their travels, and I think there's something wrong with that, but that's my opinion. I have my opinion. Those other business owners of you out there who don't reimburse people for their things that get lost or stolen, I understand the urge to want to save some money sometimes, but if your employee is actually good, you should probably reimburse them if you're watching this. You're probably not, though, because you're not my audience. Hey! So, working remotely isn't always what it's cut out to be. Another thing that happens when you work remotely a lot, this is a really interesting one, because when people look at social media and they I can even post pictures or whatever, and I don't know, I don't really care much about social media. I have to for marketing things, I guess. I don't know. I hate marketing. I hate social media. I hate socializing. I'm very introverted. But I do still like to see people that I know and care about. I do have a very large friend network. I have a lot of friends. Sometimes I'll be that person who's having dinner or lunch with a different friend every single day, which when I'm really busy I can't do, and I have to force myself to not be catching up with people all the time. But I love my people. I like to talk to my people. I like to be available for my people. That's a thing that's important to me. And when I worked remotely a lot, you can't make friends. Like, you can meet people. You can meet a lot of people. And yeah, so some people might call that a friend. But to me, when I think of a friend, I think of someone who, if something bad happens to them, I'm gonna cover their back. I'm gonna help them out. Like, if they get stranded somewhere in another state, like I had a friend who got stranded in Hawaii when I was in another stateside area, and I was like, I got your back. And then that same friend, it's like they have my back. It's someone who I've built trust with, someone who I know very well, someone who it's not just some random person you meet at a bar or on the street or on a plane. And so when you travel a lot, pretty much you can build a bunch of shallow acquaintances, and there's nothing wrong with that. Talking to new people's great. But when you talk to new people constantly, it's just like, I don't know, I talk to new people so often that there's no novelty in talking to new people when you talk to hundreds of people all the time. Then you just don't want to talk to hundreds of people all the time because you already do it. It's just enough. It's already enough. So when you're traveling, it's hard to find some solitude sometimes unless you have an apartment, or a hotel, and you're not working with a remote team. Then, you can have your own little hotel space where you're just like, all right, I'm here. I'm alone. But your friends aren't there. You can't bring I actually would bring my friends with me. I'd go on a trip and I'd bring my cousin with me to Vegas or whatever. I'd bring my mom on Mother's Day out because I'd be out of the state where my mom lives during Mother's Day, and I'd just be like, I don't know, just whatever. I'd just pay for her to come out and, take her to a bed and breakfast thing where she can just go be pampered while I work and have a Mother's Day and have all the fancy whatevers. I don't know. But so I would do things like that. But then when you start doing international work, you also can't really call people because, if you're in Asia and your family is in North America, or vice versa, it could be either way, and you're constantly doing these back and forth trips, well, people are sleeping when you're awake half the time, and you're sleeping when they're awake half the time, and so you don't even get to keep up with anyone. And so you just kind of get estranged. And if you're in a place long enough, that's better, because then you can start to kind of make friends. And the reaction I usually get, that I've gotten from that, is they're like, well, you should learn how to be more social. It's like, well, people who know me are like, you're one of the most social people I've ever met. Like, I don't know. Like, I like my introvert time because I'm fairly introverted, but I talk to a lot of people all the time, and it drains me and burns me out. But I do still want to talk to my people, regardless of things. And so they'll be like, oh, you should just learn how to be more social. It's like, I can talk to random people all the time. I talk to random people all the time. Like, half the time when I get off of a flight, the people just want my number and they want to like see if we can reconnect sometime. And it's like, it's an everyday occurrence. I'm like, all right, person who I'll never talk to again. No offense, and it's not trying to be offensive that I don't necessarily always call people back when I'm running around, but it's like, they're not where I am anyways, and it's not like I can build a long-standing friendship unless I just like call this new person I just met on the phone. But then I have other people who I can already call. So why don't I, if I'm going to call someone, I'm going to call someone who I know well, who I already enjoy talking to, who I've built a relationship with over years, not days. You can't have a close friend after a day. Now, you might meet someone and you hit it off, and then years later, you're like best friends, and yeah, maybe you did hit it off and stuff like that. But if you were to just meet that person and then something happened where you just never saw them again, you wouldn't even think about it. You wouldn't even know that they would have been your best friend. It's just this person that you don't know. Anyways, so it probably sounds like a real critical video, but it or like I'm very antisocial or however have you. But it's interesting, and that's it's isolating. I guess that's the word. It's very isolating, even if you're surrounded by people. You can be taking a bunch of clients out to dinner and everyone's partying and you're this big party, but you still feel isolated because you're isolated from like your support system. And when you have a very strong support system and then you're uprooted from it. Now, if you have absolutely no support system, that's probably a little different. Then you should figure out how to get a support system at that point, and I guess you could start anywhere. And if I were to stay somewhere long enough, and anytime I do stay somewhere long enough, yeah, I do end up making friends, and then I have people who I keep in touch with, and I'll go visit them. I keep in touch with a lot of them now. If you're watching my video, which I know a lot of you do, hi, and thank you for supporting my channel, and thank you for being good friends, because I appreciate all of you. So I do know that a lot of my dear close friends are watching my content as well, and I think that's a very valuable thing. I think we're all here for each other. And when you're working remotely a lot, it can sometimes really isolate you and just pull you away from your support structures. So it's not going to stop me. I've done it for years. I don't know. I'm an international cybersecurity professional at this point. That's just kind of what I've built for myself, and that's kind of where I'm at, for better, for worse. And everything has its ups and its downs. I love what I do. But now you know some of the downsides and some of the things that, maybe the more uncomfortable subject matter that people don't really talk about. Because not everything is perfect, not everything is peachy, and not everything is cheery. Subscribe to my channel if you like this type of content. I am sponsored by Nato, which is a company that I run. And for that company's sponsorship, we have created a cybersecurity qualifications guide to provide to people who watch my channel, and that's free. So you can go ahead and download that now and tell me what you think. Tell me what you think of the security qualifications guide, and if there's something that I can do to make it better or improve whatever I'm offering to you. Continue to ask questions. Thank you for everything everyone has done for my channel. I appreciate every one of you. Have a good day.